Hey guys, it's Snoopy, and welcome to my first YouTube video. Drogoz has been my favorite champion to play since I started playing Paladins 5 months ago, so I figured that my first Paladins guide should be on this crazy fun blaster. I have 20 tips for you guys on how to improve your Drogoz gameplay. Do note that these tips are not in any order of importance, it was the order I thought of them in. So, without further ado, let's get started. Tip number 1. Make sure that your thrust is available, or will be off cooldown when finished ulting. Immediately thrusting after getting the kill can improve your chances of survival significantly. Drogoz is extremely vulnerable in his ult, since he has to be up close to secure a kill, so it's very important to have that getaway ability. Tip number 2. Tanks are the priority when using your ult, since your ult will insta-kill any enemy because of their high HP. However, a pick is a pick, and if there's an enemy out of position for an easy kill, go for it. Add those stats. Tip number 3. Snipers sting. However, it doesn't mean Drogoz can't adapt when facing one. Drogoz just needs to be played in a different way. Normally, Drogoz is treated in a safe, defensive way by poking down line of sight. However, Drogoz shouldn't be poking around when against a sniper. Snipers will outpoke you. It's literally their job. That said, do not underestimate a flank Drogoz on a stationary target like a sniper. His DPS is nuts when hitting those easy direct shots. This playstyle takes more skill than the latter, but this will help you in specific matchups and make you a more well-rounded Drogoz player. Tip number 4. Coming off tip number 3, when approaching an enemy DPS or support that isn't aware of the legendary Drogoz flank, you can insta-kill a squishy with a salvo plus fire spit. This is much more forgiving and achievable when running Fusillade, which is overall the talent I recommend for Drogoz. Fusillade buffs your direct shots by 25% as well as your salvo rockets. The fire spit plus salvo combo is placing your fire spit right next to the enemy, blow up the spit with the first salvo rocket, and then track the enemy movements for the rest of your shots. This combo can deal up to 2,475 damage. Usually it can insta-kill the squishy. Using the movement pips in the shooting range is also a great way to practice this combo. Tip number 5. When you know an enemy is behind a wall or a corner, you can poke them by shooting your fire spit as it passes the wall or corner. This is free damage, and only higher elo players know and can expect the fire spit poke. Tip number 6. Health cards are your best friend when making drug loadouts. Since Drogoz's mobility isn't at all impressive, having some bulk can help in certain matchups. I prefer my HP card to be at least a 3. Tip number 7. Coming off of tip number 6, Haven is your best friend too. I like Drogoz at 2400 HP or HP card 4. However, Strix and Kinessa both can 2-shot him with body shots, and Androxus takes 4 body shots to kill. By buying Haven, even just Haven 1, it will take 3 shots and 5 shots respectively, greatly increasing the time to kill. Tip number 8. This takes time to master, but shooting a fire spit and a direct hit on an enemy at the same time is possible. Aim the fire spit super close to the enemy while shooting the enemy and letting the blast from the direct ignite the spit, and it will deal 1,963 damage with Fusillade. This is a harder version of the fire spit salvo combo, but you can do this without having your salvo rockets available. I recommend practicing both because both are very useful. Tip number 9. Know when to play Drogoz. Drogoz has good vertical mobility and good AoE blast damage. So, small maps and maps with a lot of high ground is advised when picking Drogoz. Drogoz maps are considered Ice Mines, Bright Marsh, and Serpent Beach. I also don't mind playing Drogoz on Jaguar Falls, Splitstone Quarry, and Stone Keep. Wide open maps and flat maps are really tough for a Drogoz main to be effective. So Frog Isle, Frozen Guard, Fish Market, and Shattered Desert will make things unnecessarily hard for our flying lizard friend. Tip number 10. Getting used to aiming with Drogoz can be pretty hard, and will ultimately take a while to get comfortable with. Luckily, many projectile champions also have a similar projectile speed, so practicing champs like Grover, Eevee, and Amani can indirectly help your Drogoz gameplay as well. Tip number 11. Fire spits are actually easy to hit. After using your fire spit, do not move your crosshair and shoot your rocket. The rocket will go where you aimed your fire spit. Tip number 12. A small caveat to tip number 11. Fire spit height decreases over a distance. When trying to ignite a fire spit from across the map, aim your crosshair slightly under the spit to avoid missing it completely. Tip number 13. Use the element of surprise, even when at low health, to potentially trade lives with an enemy, or win a crucial 1v1. Let's say you're retreating into a small room. Do not just turn around and attempt to kill your enemy. That's a 3-head play. A 5-head play would be using your boosters and hover over a corner to hide, and then gain the advantage with a free shot when the enemy least expects it. Drogoz is the only champ that can do this well, so use it wisely. Tip number 14. In a 1v1 situation, when you're using your thrust to engage, try to thrust over the enemy's head. You are significantly harder to hit when directly above the opponent. However, it is very dangerous to engage with thrust because you have no escape for when the fight is no longer in your favor. Running the survival card in your deck is essential if this is how you commonly engage enemies. That reset could save you. Alright, tip number 15. Holding the spacebar consumes your booster fuel faster than if you flutter tap spacebar. It is something you have to feel out in the shooting range to get a good rhythm for. Fuel management overall isn't that important, but it could be a game of inches. There's been dozens of times where I almost made it to the high ground I was planning on going for, and then just slowly going down the wall because I didn't have enough fuel. Tip number 16. Do not be afraid to turn around when ulting. If you're taking too much damage, you'll realize you'll die immediately after. A trade isn't enough value for Drogoz's ult. Your life is much more important than that. Retreating during ult can not only save your life, but it still creates space because the enemy team is scared of you, and you can reposition yourself to a higher spot on the map while saving 30% ult charge. Beating just isn't the Drogoz way. Your KDA matters. Tip number 17. Watch out for Ashe and Fernando ultimates when using your ult. When you know they have ult towards them and then flick away last second to bait out their ult. And never ult me Ying. You're probably just going to hit one of her clones. Tip number 18. Try to pop your ultimate in a safe spot. It takes a full 2 seconds before you can start moving. In those 2 seconds, you are very vulnerable and could be a wasted life if you're not careful. I prefer boosting to the top of the nearby wall next to who you plan on ulting to start up my Dragon's Fury safely. Tip number 19. There are a few situations where you want to directly spit on your enemy. Puking on them is gross, but you temporarily deal 30% more damage each shot on the enemy you spat on top of the 150 base damage. Situations where this play has a lower time to kill than the standard way is when you're up close with a tank, like in ulting Makoa for example. Tip number 20. Do not first pick Drogoz in ranked. He is easily countered by Androxus and Maeve, and has many soft counters. So saving for a teammate and trading later in the draft will most likely give you a much better matchup. So those are all the tips I have for my boy Drogoz. I hope this was nice, short, and sweet for you guys. For more Drogoz advice, check me out on Twitch where I stream every day. In addition to using my loadouts, like my in-game name is SnoopyTTV for those that want to import them. Thank you guys so much for watching my first YouTube video, and make sure you like it and subscribe if you enjoy the content. But that's all I have for you today, and enjoy the rest of the match. Peace out, guys.
Capture point spawning in 15 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Target locked.
Again, and no one was surprised.